Welcome to 5-Minute Modules, where I show that you can do these module exercises in less than 5 minutes. Today we're going to look at 4.2 A and B. So let's begin by looking at the module instructions. In 4.2 we're basically talking about which method we're going to use to contact our respondents. In the Maxwell Manual they give us 3 basic types of contact: face-to-face, telephone, and email. So if we look at this, it's discussed in the Maxwell Manual on pages 47, 48, and following. And if you look at page 49, they tell you, let's say, the advantages and disadvantages of different methods of contact. So we can go back to our module and say, well, let's choose one of those 3 methods. Well, the answer I'm going to choose is telephone. That's pretty simple. That's all you have to write, one word, telephone. Now, it asks you to justify the reason. There's lots of different reasons why you might choose one method of contact over another. For example, it's basically cost and response rate. Face-to-face is very costly, email is very cheap. But the response rate for email is very low, and the response rate for, let's say, face-to-face is very high. So you have to balance those considerations. Now there's other considerations mentioned in the Maxwell Manual, but those are kind of, let's say, a little more peripheral. So basically I choose telephone because it's going to balance the cost and the response rate considerations and say, well, I have some funds which I can support the telephone, and if I have an unlimited calling plan, this might not be that much of a problem to make enough calls for my survey. But I also don't want to do face-to-face because it's not dense enough to walk from house to house. So that's it. We have 4.2a finished. The second part is whether we can compare, let's say, use a statistic to compare the target population with the sample. Because even though we might have picked the sample randomly, it might be biased unintentionally. For example, we might have oversampled men or women, old people or young people. Well, I'm going to identify one variable here, I'm going to call age. And the reason I'm doing this is because age is a pretty important variable when we're looking at telephones. In part because most young people or younger people are more likely to have cell phones. And cell phones are not listed and therefore get undersampled in most surveys. But I want to go in why this is important. And to show you that, I'm going to show you some data and show you how it can be biased if your sample is not done correctly. This shows you the relationship between the obesity rate and HPV vaccinations in different American states. In the upper left-hand corner, we have the target population with all 50 states included. And I show in the other 3 quadrants different types of sampling. In the upper right quadrant, I showed you a southern sample. These are the states with the lowest levels of vaccination and also, let's say, the highest obesity rates. But if you look at the equation, you can see how it's changed. In the target population, the X variable is 2.79. In the southern sample, 2.0. The intercept in the target population, 95. The intercept in the southern sample, 75. The same thing would happen if I just sampled northern states. And I would get, let's say, a skewed, a slope, and I also get a skewed intercept. But if I did an alphabetical sample, for example, if I just chose every 5 states using the alphabetical order of the states, you can see I get almost exactly the same intercept and exactly the same slope that it would if I looked at all 50 states. This shows you why it's important. Let's take a look back at the exercise. Okay, so we've identified the variable age, and I'm going to say why it mattered. I'm going to say that young people tend to have cell phones, and therefore their number is not listed. Checking by age will correct for this undersampling. In addition, it is not related to the variables of interest for my survey. You also have to say why it's important, and the reason is as I showed you in the graphs. The reasons are if I unintentionally over or undersampled, I may get an inaccurate result that will skew my survey. There we are. You might want to write a little bit more than that, but that's basically the gist of how to answer this. And that's your 5-minute module for today.